There may be 4.6 sheep for every person in New Zealand, but not all sheep are the same, as this week's guest will tell you. Brian Hales has spent the last few years amassing a collection of rare and exotic sheep breeds on his farm in Wimbledon, Tararua district. From breeds unique to Aotearoa, like the rare Arapawa sheep found on an island in the Marlborough Sounds, to Swedish Gotlands and the versatile caracals of Kazakhstan. With Brian having recently sold much of his farm, Janina Schwanecker asked what was happening to his flock.
I'm Brian Hales. I live at Wimbledon. Wimbledon, for those of you who don't know it, is a small village, and it is situated 65 k's east of Dannevirke and 65 k's east of Waipakarau. It is 6 kilometres from the coast being Herbertville or Cape Turn again.
Brian, can you tell me why you started collecting exotic and rare breeds of sheep?
Well, it started about 15 years ago, I suppose, and my brother, Nigel, he managed a wool scour, huge wool scour in Kazakhstan, and the wool that they scoured there mostly was caracal wool, and he found great value in this wool. And then when he returned to New Zealand, we actually managed to locate 6 caracal sheep, 5 ewes and a ram. We acquired their sheep and we bred from them. And at that stage, I'd have been farming here for probably 40-odd years. I was looking for something to give me a little bit more inspiration from what I was doing. So I looked after these. I treasured these sheep. And then it became a bit of a fascination. I acquired a Gotland sheep, a line of Gotlands, and that was pretty interesting. And then some Arapara Island sheep and something else. It was like collecting stamps. It went on and on and on. And I would think that over the years I've ended up with about 20, 25 breeds of sheep. Normally have about 20 at a time. I have up to 300 exotic sheep on my hands at a time. As well, I also have my commercial flock of about 1,200 Romney ewes and about 100 cows.
And now, Brian, you have sold your collection of sheep and a large part of the farm, I understand.
Yes, the grazing land of our farm has been sold for pine trees, and along with that goes I've had to sell the exotic sheep.
So what's happened to your flock now? Have they all found new homes?
Yes, I had a sale in Dannevirke just a few weeks ago, and we sent in 90 sheep, and 70 of those sold, and they all went to good homes. I'm confident of that. And also the 20-odd that I brought back, plus a few others that I have back here that I didn't keep, that I've held back from the sale. I've still got 120-odd acres, so yeah, some of those will survive here.
You mentioned a couple of different sheep breeds there. Can you tell me a little bit about some of their characteristics and maybe your favourite sheep breed?
Possibly every breed is a favourite. If I was to have a favourite sheep, it would certainly be the caracal sheep. It's the oldest breed of sheep known to man, has the fat tail, was present when Jesus was born, everything like that. Brilliant history behind it. It belongs in the desert, the desert dwellers, and they get all their needs supplied to them from the caracal sheep. They can felt the wool to make their tents. They can use the little trimmings to stuff their saddles with. They can make their clothing out of it. They can eat the meat. They can milk the sheep. They use the bones for tent pegs. So the caracal sheep is a brilliant sheep in terms of its supplying human needs. Certainly a versatile animal. Yeah.
I imagine, Brian, that you've seen a lot of changes in your time as a sheep and beef farmer here in New Zealand, particularly with wool.
Yes.
What do you think we can learn from some of the exotic or rarer breeds that you've had?
There was a breed of sheep known as the Drysdale. Everybody will be familiar with the Drysdale, and Drysdale wool was essential in carpet manufacturing to dye. You can dye it to use it in carpet. And that was a very, very popular breed of sheep, and that was only 25 years ago, I suppose. It might be 30 years ago. But all of a sudden, carpet lost its place, and so the Drysdale sheep disappeared. So the sheep are determined upon the economics of the time. I am a bit concerned as to what might be happening now, that some of our good pasture land may be going into trees, and so the sheep needs are being pushed to more remote areas, and these could be offshore islands or higher up mountains to where it's colder and snowier. And so therefore sheep like the Campbell Island sheep that are used to the subantarctic islands could have values of their own because they have the ability to withstand the cold. So there are things that we can just keep in reserve for the future.
And are there any particular sheep that you will miss, I suppose?
Possibly the curricles. They were a good talking point. There's millions of talking points about the curricles, but they were so hard to look after. I think the interaction between people will miss the most, rather than the actual keeping of the sheep, the sharing of knowledge, the exchange of ideas, and that sort of thing.
That was Brian Hales speaking to Janina Schwanecker.